Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Rum. This is a podcast of two brothers from opposite ends of the spectrum. My name's Kent. I'm a rum drinker, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon, tend to be a little more conservative. Join us as we explore this experiment. Can two brothers from different sides of the political spectrum have a civil conversation and celebrate our differences?
What are you drinking?
I don't know if I drank this yet on the show or not. I got this Old Fitzgerald's bottled in bond. Old Fitzgerald's is a Heaven Hill whiskey, and it's a unicorn. I mean, it's almost impossible to find a Heaven Hill or an Old Fitzgerald, and the good ones up to like 19-year are like thousands of dollars. But Old Fitz this year released a 7-year version of their bottled bond lineup and put out quite a few. So pretty accessible, under $100, and yeah, it's good stuff.
Cool.
What do you got going?
Nothing fancy today. Just a classic daiquiri with a little bit of my Cruzan aged rum. So nothing fancy.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, I've seen the Four Square rum before. I've had some of it I got a couple of ones that are really good. And then I texted you that the other day, and the liquor store, they had a 12-year. That sounded pretty tasty.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Well, hey, first to kick off, I've just got to say I'm speechless by this that's happened down in San Antonio area. And I hope to heaven you don't have any connection. The girls have friends or anything like that.
Yeah, we don't, but man, it's haunting. Our oldest just went to a summer camp. She went up to Oklahoma, but it's like, man, I mean, just the videos and the stuff you read, it was just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They said the last time that kind of flood happened, it was like 32.
Wow. Well, prayers for families and, all of the things. I mean, they're still talking over 60 fatalities plus another dozen missing or something. So really unbelievable.
Yeah. That whole area is, I mean, the river. Now this, Mom was asking if it was where when we went, we were down near New Braunfels. Now it's flooding, but it's not, it's west where the really bad stuff happened. And, but still all through there, the river's a huge recreational thing. People are all camping up and down the side of the river and it's been
awful.
So dry here. It's like nobody thinks of a flood. But then I guess that rainstorm just dumped a ton.
Yeah. Really awful. Well, you sent a message about, let me get this right. You listened to Bernie Sanders on Rogan. Is that where this started?
Yeah. I enjoyed their dialogue because they argued about stuff, but like us, it's a civil thing. Like they're not shouting at each other. And honestly, they agreed on a lot of stuff, and they both kind of made the same comment that we've made before that, we all want the same outcome in many cases. It's just we have different ways of getting there. And I'm frustrated by this bill because what I really desired was somebody to really make some significant cuts. I mean, the discussion was, we're spending $2 trillion more than we're taking in. We're going to dial this back and come away balance the budget. Okay, I'm all about that. But then you put this reconciliation bill forward that essentially spends the same amount of money. It's on different crap, but it's still $2 trillion more than we're taking in. And one of the things Bernie talked about, and Rogan talked about too, was, the whole concept of the productivity gains that we get out of AI and how when there's productivity gains, I mean, you could say people win because companies get more profitable, but they really don't necessarily. I mean, it's like, I don't know, we've joked on the podcast before, like, we both started in the workforce before there was email. And it's like, I was doing just as much work then as I do now, but it's actually more crap because you can do more. And it's like, did that benefit my job, or it just gave me more work to do so that we could produce more? And like Rogan's thing is like, like he was talking, every company, and it's true. I mean, it's more, 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 more. There's an insatiable app in any public company. It's like, well, we got to do more the next quarter, and then more the next quarter. It's an ever ending, push for more, more, and more, which I understand because that you want your stock price to go higher and higher and higher and be more profitable, more profitable, more profitable. But at what point is there any benefit of all this technology to the populace? And if all it does is create more extremes, so you got, and I sound like a bleeding heart liberal over here, but if you get to where all you're doing is enriching the top, everybody in the middle is working their ass off because now they've got to do more with the technology. It's like, how could you come up with a way to where, or not only could you come up with a way, forget the practicality of it. Is it logical that the population should benefit from the productivity enhancements of AI? Or should it just be, you know, companies are using one of these tools? At what point is there a collective improvement that ought to benefit people? Because the flip side is, with the changes that will take place, I mean, there's all kinds of industries that are just going to be completely gutted, and you've said, okay, well, everybody can get a job in AI, but I mean, there's going to be millions of jobs potentially that are going to get, you're not going to need.
Right. Well, no, I agree with you. I really do. And if I said everybody could just get a job in AI, I don't think I don't
Yeah,
think
I'd
I
probably
meant that.
brush that. No, we were talking
No,
about
but
manufacturing.
I mean, people have to adapt, but you know that there's a percentage of people that won't make that shift, right? That are going to be collateral damage. So you know that fraction of the population is going to pay that price. I guess I look at history. I think about the Industrial Revolution. To your point, email and the internet and computer innovation. I would argue you could scoff at this, but like, isn't Europe working on like a lot of 4-day work weeks? And like
Right.
they maybe did take some of those chips off the table, and we didn't. We were full speed ahead. And again, now people are you work 50 hours a week. You worked 50 hours a week before. You do more, but you still work 50 hours a week. So like
Right.
what's up with that?
Yeah.
But historically, yeah, those things, if you look, Industrial Revolution, right, it has ultimately benefited everybody in terms of a standard of living change. But that's one of the outcomes. You level up the whole standard of living for the entirety of society. I would rather be the poorest person in America, well, maybe not the poorest, but I would rather be
Bottom
bottom 10
10% now.
percentile in the United States of America in 2025 than the median income throughout most of human history.
Yeah.
So the standard of living does increase, but that's a longer term play. The short run, yeah, it throws people out of work. And most of the benefits accrete to the capitalists, the owners of the businesses that just reap greater productivity.
Well, and then one of the discussions they came up with, that the other piece of, and it touches the universal basic income bit of these people that have no job to do. I mean, okay, so you fast forward, when you think of everything that's happened with ChatGPT over the last 2 years, okay, multiply that by 100. What does that look like? And is there going to be whole groups of the population that there's no work to be done? But then what does life look like if you're not working? Like, where's the purpose that people will have for their life without a job?
Mm, I don't know. I used to think along those lines. Now I think that the purpose of life is to enjoy life, and work is a necessary evil. And so, maybe
I
the,
got to
the
call BS on you there, because you've always told me like you don't plan to retire. Maybe that's changed.
times times are changing. Long story, but I actually never had a retirement plan, but we kind of do now. And I've been really fortunate, even when my job's been the most stressful, I enjoy what I do. I believe in what I do. I do mission related work, and it's something I take pride in.
Okay, but you're full disclosure, you've taken up a sailing hobby and you guys are going to go stay in a sailing boat in retirement. You could also make the case you're working. You're fixing the you're working for yourself for your own enjoyment, but there's work involved with
Right.
what you're doing.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't mean, to me, retirement is not about just put your feet up and coast. Like,
Yeah.
I have no interest in that. But I do like the idea of having more control of my time, more control of what I do.
Yeah.
But I probably still plan to be busy,
Yeah.
but just a different kind of busy. Anyway, that's kind of a side rail. I'm agreeing with you. Probably the most interesting thing that you mentioned in the text to me was the recognition, number one, that we live in a time where the life expectancy is skyrocketing for people, and our systems are still, life expectancy is moving geometrically. We're still moving things like retirement age incrementally,
Yeah.
and that doesn't pencil. Now,
Yeah. The
again,
first
I think,
part, yeah, the first part of my thought process and listening to that was about there's going to be a benefit that comes with AI. How do you harness that? And then the step two is we're $2 trillion over our income. What kind of radical change could you make to change that trajectory? And then, and even it comes down to even like a podcast or something, because I feel like we're in such a uh, polarized world that, and people get so entrenched in their viewpoint. Like even us, I think we do a pretty good job of breaking out, but even us, we can get entrenched in our viewpoint. And sometimes we don't think about stuff that's really radical because, well, I would hate to, betray my side of the aisle here, and honestly, there's a
right.
lot of crap that comes into that. So we got to talk, I got to talking like, what if you did, if you did something radical, like, and what I said in the text is like, okay, if you made the retirement age 80 instead of 62, it's back to what your point was when Social Security started. I mean, people were only living till like 65 and they're retiring at 62. If everybody didn't cash check till 80, it's a small, there's not a lot to pay for. Now the math I've seen researching, it doesn't just cut it by 90%, but it probably cut 60%. You could probably save 700 billion, close to a trillion. And then the thought was, okay, but what if between Medicaid and Medicare, it's about a trillion and a half. They say single payer healthcare. If you could give healthcare to everybody, they say you could do that they think you could do it for about 3 trillion a year. Okay. You take money out of the retirement, you spend some more money on healthcare, you get rid of Medicare, Medicaid, and then you turn it into a single payer system. I'm sure there's a lot of opinions on both sides, but there could be some efficiencies by not paying money the way we pay for Medicare and Medicaid at the last
Right.
minute.
Like, take the gloves off. I mean, I think that you're right. Like, there's all the buts and whats, but yeah, theoretically, what does it cost? You know what? I think on that, and I don't want to sidetrack what you're saying. If you, everybody's like, I don't want the government in healthcare. Add up the number of people that are on Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE,
Yeah.
and Veterans Administration.
It's huge. Well, and I guess where I'm going is, yeah, in the current scenario, even if you got rid of Medicare and Medicaid, you might be able to pay for it. Honestly, you might get close to paying for it if you raised Social Security and got rid of Medicare and Medicaid. You're probably spending more, but my thought was you're going to get productivity gains out of AI. And is there a way you could harness that?
Yeah.
And the point of the single payer to me is just if you were 75 years old and you didn't have to worry about healthcare, but you could get a part-time job, is that a better life for you than 75 and sitting on your ass? I mean, it's easy for me to say that. I mean, I can't legislate. Somebody worked hard their whole life. They don't need to keep working necessarily. But if you didn't have healthcare, it's a low bar. I mean,
You need to do a couple things. I'm with you on this and by the way, the efficiency. There's a documentary that's now 25 years old. I'll find a link and send it to you. Healthcare, Sick Around the World, I think it's called. And it's about different systems. Some countries do what we tried to do with Obamacare, with an individual mandate. Some do straight up single payer government. All these countries have different models. The one distinctive that we had, this is back at the time, versus every other one of them, pound for pound, we paid $2 for every one that these other countries spent. And it's not that single payer's bad and private insurance is good or whatever. Literally, because we have such a bifurcated system, we have huge inefficiencies and we pay for that through the nose. We really do. But what you have to do for that kind of model, I really do agree with you. At the same time, more people are able bodied at 80 years old today, but not everybody's able bodied at 80 years old
Yeah.
today. What I would do is I would be diverting money from Social Security retirement to Social Security disability and make it, maybe not make it easier, but have the understanding that you're going to have a lot of people that at 70 really aren't physically capable of working.
I guess my thing is if there is a, and again, who knows, but if there is this slush fund that develops because of the AI productivity gains, to me, getting universal health care is a better use of that than universal basic income. Because to me, universal basic income, it's back to this thing. Like if nobody has, there large swaths of the population have no reason to do anything, I don't think that's good for anybody. But if everybody had their health care squared away, they wouldn't need a full-time gig. You know what I mean? You don't need to work 80 hours a week, but okay, even if you're kind of part-time retired and you're working 20 hours a week somewhere, that's good for you. It's probably good for somebody else because you're doing something productive. You know what I mean? It's like, it seems like it's a better use of this collective that we think we're going to have. Because, there's a lot of people thinking we're going to have enough productivity enhancement that it could fund universal basic income. And to me, that's a mistake.
Yeah, I'm with you. I still think the UBI is a really interesting concept, in part because you take the government out of the racket of, I guess I would say universal basic income and universal health care. I mean, if you got to pick one, yeah, I'd take health care. The other thing about fixing health care that I've maintained consistently for 20 years now is what does that do to the business creation and the innovation activity in this country? And I think that it adds dramatically to the innovation of this economy and the creation of jobs. How many businesses don't get started? I talk about myself. I am front lines of this. I'm in a field right now where I think there is absolutely a market for consulting in a niche field that I'm in. I think that I could start something and I think I could probably do way better than my salary. The reason I won't do that is because of
Right.
health insurance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so unleash that. What does that do for our economy?
The other piece of it is I don't think you get away with the private insurance or the private health care. I mean, you could get an extra level of
Sure.
health care. It's just like today. I mean, I can go to the ER or I can go pay extra and go to a private ER and get seen immediately. I'm sure you'd still
Yeah.
have that, but you'd have this safety net, which, again, we talk about all the time. I don't care, somebody tell me I'm smoking something by saying this, but we already have free health care. If I can't pay, it's free. Like nobody's turning you away at the ER.
Right. Well, and there is some turning away and some shuffling of patients, and private hospitals have different rules than public hospitals. All it does, though, ultimately, those people get care. All it does is shift the cost. Again, instead of a preventive health care and getting a basic medication that's nothing prescribed, we have people that are serial ER visitors, right? So rather than a $25 copay, we're dropping $500 on an ER visit. That's why we spend $2 on the dollar for what everybody else does.
Yeah. But I mean, I say all that, and that sounds interesting. But if I go back to how do we get from 7 trillion a year to 5 trillion a year, that's probably not going to help. Honestly, what we need to do is, I mean, if we wanted to really pay for it, you need to move the retirement age to 80, and we need to cut half our military and we need to cut into Medicare. I mean, that's the only way you're going to pay for it, unless there's some magical productivity enhancement in AI again, which certainly seems possible, but at the same time, there's a lot of other people that want that money other than.
Well, and aren't we on a
Society alone.
trajectory? I don't know. I'm benefiting from AI right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me that benefits, it's my employer that benefits. I still work the
Right.
same hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting concept. And I think maybe most interesting about what you said, first of all, I commend you for thinking very much outside that is not a platform you got emailed to you from Republican National Committee headquarters.
No.
And good, right? Like that's the kind of almost thought experiment that we've got to have the courage to have in this country. And look, the incentive for the political class is to quell. There is not a single member of Congress that wants you talking that heresy to anybody right now.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about something that would actually legitimately benefit a large swath of the population. Well, that doesn't play into the agenda of pitting people against each other. Our political class that are the barnacles on this system, their expectation is that they don't have to explain these things. It's like nobody ever asks the question, like, wait, my side's opposed to government health care, but I do figure that we will continue to pay for Medicare, Medicaid, the VA, and TRICARE. So,
and anybody that walks into an ER without insurance is going to get healthcare.
Right. So, what is it? 40% of us that are doing the work and pay for it thing?
Yeah. Right. Well, and I don't know. One of the things that podcast I thought was interesting, they were just talking about if you view the country as a community in like, hey, how do we make things best for the community? I know that sounds a little collectivist, but it should a little bit. I mean, you don't want a place where like it's a horrible experience for some and a great experience for others. I mean, I certainly believe in the kind of personal accountability and personal choice and everything else. But at the same time, like, do you need to structure it in a way that only benefits the few? That is not a recipe for long-term survival of.
No, it's not. And I've thrown this around in the past kind of tritely, but there are lessons in the French Revolution.
Right.
Really, and I do worry about the income, the distribution of wealth in this country. And again, I don't think the answer to that. I mean, long term, the answer to that is to create a system where the middle class and everybody else, all those boats can rise. The long term structural thing is not to just take from the rich and give to the poor.
But you know that what's funny about the current political system is like that notion. The disagreement is between a 39% on the top tax bracket versus 41%. Like everybody's fighting over like meaningless differences. Like if you really wanted to change, you're gonna have to do something hugely different structurally.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to have to be a radical difference to make a difference. But like none of the two political, that's the thing that, to me, that's the thing that struck me the most with this stupid bill that Trump and them put forth is it's because of where he was and the radical, like to me, the stage was set for being able to do something significant with Doge and everything else. Like, okay, we're going to do something to really change the game. No, all we're going to do is the same crap that the two political parties have done for the last 100 years. It's just like incremental crap back and forth, no change whatsoever. Like nobody, like nothing's changing. I mean, we're probably spent a little more than Biden did. And then, it's like, what's the argument now? Well, Biden spent all this money. Well, Trump spent all this money. So like it's all the same,
Yeah.
And, to your point, like it's not that, there's one school of thought, like your thing was when Trump came to office, they're like, well, my life's fine. I mean, the economy's going pretty good. Stock market's going pretty good. And yes and no. Like, yes, but to me, you just got this huge train wreck, slow motion train wreck that is going to happen if you keep spending 7 trillion when you got 5 trillion. It's like, I just don't see it ending well.
How much, and forgive my ignorance on this, how much did the Trump tax cuts. Uh, Republicans don't want to talk about it like an expense, but it's a reduction in revenue, right? At least in the near term. And you can make the argument that long term the economy will grow and will come out. But in the short run, it's a significant loss of revenue. What would our deficit look like if it weren't for the tax cut part of it, not the spending, but the tax cut part of it? Do you know?
But I don't, but I would suspect it's not like you're going to have to do something a lot deeper than that to change it. I mean, I bet you it's a couple $100 billion. It's not a trillion. It's not 2 trillion. I mean, if you want to get rid of that 2 trillion in deficit, again, you're either going to have to take a huge cut to the defense or Medicare or Medicaid.
Well, it's interesting because even apart from the dollar amount, I mean, I am squarely middle class. And my taxes went up because of the Trump tax bill, whatever that was. It in 16 or 17 the first time around? My taxes went up. I pay more in federal taxes as a percentage of my same dollar income than I did before the tax cuts.
Well, I think part of it though depends on how you file because the standard deduction, my experience with it was if I think it was like if you like you might have been filing like the full deduction thing and then when he upped the standard you had to have a lot more charitable giving to hit the tripwire to a full deduction. So I think there was like a
No,
probably butchering the
you're
explanation.
right. You're right. But it's not just charitable giving that's a factor. I took the state and local income tax cap at 10,000 right in the teeth. That's what happened to me. That because I could only deduct up to 10,000 in state and local taxes, even if I itemize, that's what hit me. I live in it's a Republican state, but it's a relatively high tax state. And so my property taxes, my state income tax, none of that's deductible to me. So yeah, my tax, and it's not just a choice of how I file. I mean, it's like, no, I optimize what I'm doing and I'm paying more per pound in federal income taxes than I was before.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
I mean, well, the thing is, compared to the hard part with the Trump tax cut, he just extended it. So like it's been in the budget for the last 4 years.
right. No, I'm just looking at what was the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and I'm looking for a dollar amount. But like we've said before, it's really hard to get at the amounts. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. The one that kills me is that they cut the estate tax or they raised the estate tax threshold. I mean, of all taxes that we should be doing as a country, like the one that makes the most sense to me is the estate tax. You can do whatever you want with your money, but you can only make your children semi-rich. That seems like a fair thing to ask of a nation.
I'm seeing 400 billion a year.
400 bill a year. Okay. Yeah, because I saw 4.6 trill over
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not the biggest slice of it.
But if he'd cut that and, you could have gotten to, I mean, what Elon was talking about was figuring a way to cut 2 trillion. That's what we need to do. And it's like, there's nobody wants to do that. And it's like, well, that's the whole point. Otherwise it's the same either way. I mean,
right. And all of the angst, all of the pain, all of the argument, all of the vilification of each other, all of the dehumanization of each other, all of that just to get to essentially the same result.
Yeah.
That's the price that we pay. We pay the social price because we're pitted against each other. All the reasons that we started this podcast in the first place, we incur all of those quote, close quote costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like we're better off.
I don't know that I've seen anybody on the national political scale who's serious about making the kind of changes that you'd have but like none of them care. I mean, it's not a popular, like cutting Social Security is not going to get you elected.
No. What you need is a lame duck president with a lot of political power to
Exactly.
say this is what the country needs. Blame me if you want, but I'm putting us on the trajectory to make the country whole.
Right. And that angers me because that's what I thought I voted for. But
Well, even if he thought that going in, they get to him. You know how this works.
the Trilateral Commission shows up at the front
Somebody
door.
sets him down. Which I think is actually kind of funny because as much of a chaos agent as Trump is, and just like nobody can tell what he's doing, he's like unpredictable. At some point, kind of there was a conversation. Like somebody came to him and said, "No, you can't do that."
Well, and I think
Even this guy who's like willing to change things.
And I think that's why Elon is left, and now he's starting another party supposedly. I'm like, well, good luck with that. But because he's like, they put out some poll, like 65% of the people want another party. Okay, but you're not going to get those 65% to agree on anything. So there's that.
No, not even close. But who does it hurt more? Who's more vulnerable, the most marginal Democrat or the most marginal Republican?
I think that could be a whole topic of itself because with the demographic changes in the parties, if you were talking about the parties of 1985, it's probably a little more predictable, but I don't know about today.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I'm pretty happy with Trump on foreign policy. There's things that he's doing that I'm good with, but there's things like this budget that really piss me off. But I feel like that's the only downside of having a broad political tent is you're going to have a lot of happy people and a lot of pissed off people. And how does that then translate to the next? I mean, I think the Democrats have one advantage of being a little more homogenous. I mean, you've got some extremes, but it's less of a big tent.
Well, and I think again in 1985 you had a different makeup. What I've tried to point out on this podcast is my observation, and you can call BS on it if you want, but Trump got 90% of traditional Republicans, and he tacked on to that about 15% of the electorate, enough to put him over the right. So I lose 10% of Republicans. If the country's more or less 50-50, I give up 10%, or the country's really like 40-40, and then there's a 20% swing. He's like, I'll throw under the bus the 10%, the Never Trumpers, the Lincoln Project. Like I'll toss them. That may take 10, probably more like 8% of my base, and I'm going to give them away. But of that 20%, no party affiliation, pissed at everything, kind of. Well, now he can get those 7-3, and he brings those, and that's the coalition that elected him. I mean, I don't think you disagree with that, right? Like Republican classic was not enough to elect Donald Trump, certainly in this election.
Well, it wasn't
needed something.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think I agree with you. I agree in a different statement. I think there's an appeal to a broader base, and it's not based on normal political stuff because a lot of his platform wasn't traditional Republican stuff.
Exactly. Sides of the same coin. I don't think that we disagree, right?
No.
So there's the Trump base is like 90% of classic Republicans and 3/4 of the fungible middle. That's his base. I think that base follows Donald Trump. I don't think that base follows Republican principles per se. And I think that you're going to struggle to keep that coalition together in the next election.
I don't know. I mean, he was able to get the passage of this bill, but I think there's a lot of pissed off people. A lot of people are unhappy with that aspect. But again, it gets back to the thing of like, okay, even knowing what I know now and not being happy about this bill, I mean, I still would have picked him over Biden because I mean, Biden wouldn't have fixed the bill. I mean, Biden wasn't going after, the 2 trillion either. It would have been the same thing.
Sure.
There. So I'm like, well, but I mean, yeah, it's, I don't know. Like I said, that Bernie podcast, I mean, a lot of what they were lamenting, unfortunately, it's stuff that, I don't want to sound apathetic, but it's probably never going to change. Like, is anybody ever going to successfully cut the budget by 30%?
Well, I fear that, yeah, the answer to that question is yeah, that it will change. It won't change by the exercise of discipline among our electorate and our leadership. It will change on the day that the world says, you know what? I don't think those T-bills are a good buy.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
and the day that our government can't sell debt at a market rate.
Yeah.
That's a wake-up call.
So play that out. What happens when we go bankrupt, essentially?
Well, you don't ever really go bankrupt because you can always print money. But
But it's
what
going to be worse.
happens is you start having to you have to borrow. You have to borrow your 3 trillion or whatever you need a year, right? You're borrowing that money, and that's not an inherently bad thing. Remember that everybody talks about government debt, the national debt's like this horrible thing. That's not true. It's not a horrible thing. It's when it's an out of control proportion. Government debt includes the Series I bonds that I buy for my portfolio. It includes treasury bills that
Yeah.
companies use to park money because it's a safe, predictable environment, right? So government debt unlocks a lot of things in the broader economy. So it's not a bad thing per se. But when it's out of control, it is. And when you saturate the market, how much money in the world is there to buy US government bonds? And at some point, if that supply of money, the outside supply of money dries up, you start having to pay more and more per interest rate. Part of the reason we've been able to run these kind of deficits is because, other than the last couple of years, the last 20 years have been a really low interest environment.
Yeah.
And so we've lived in this like really cheap money era. And honestly, it takes the sting out of, well, yeah, you ran a $1 trillion deficit last year. Yeah, but if I'm going to pay, 1.25% on that money,
Yeah.
who cares? I think if my economy can grow faster than the interest rate that I'm paying on things, I work out fine.
Yeah.
It looks like a lot of money, but you're ahead of the curve. But when you're trying to issue debt at 6% and you're trying to bank that your economy can grow to keep pace with that, that's not going to happen. And that's where the problem really starts to happen, where you start lagging behind. Again, if you can borrow money at 2%, if you were a government and you could borrow money at 2%, spend all you can, build
But
the roads, build the factories.
there does seem to be a comparison to even like personal finances in the sense, and probably being overly simplistic, but to me, the debt we've got now is like credit card debt. It's just
Yes.
bullshit. It's not like, I mean, it'd be different if we were operating with not much of a debt and we said, you know what, we're going to take 6 trillion in debt and we're going to do XYZ that's going to have some huge benefit to society. Okay,
Yep.
that's worth it. Sell T-bills, we make interest, life is good. But when you're just like, our debt is full of like, we spent too much at the restaurant.
You are totally right. Totally right. And if the 1950s and the debt is to build the interstate highway system,
Yeah.
eh, probably a good purchase. But it's exactly that. It's like you get the statement at the end of the month and you're like, how did I spend $1,000 on restaurants and bars last month? Well, that's $30 a day. That's not that hard to hit.
Yeah.
And the money you just spill that money.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where we are right now. We're spilling money. It's not, hanging what you want on the liberals. It's not like we've got a strategic investment on addressing the needs of the permanently underemployed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no genius behind this. We're just spilling money.
Well, I was doing some research in on the budget to, okay, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to figure out how to, where is the money? Okay, like defense. And you guys start going through the defense appropriations. You're not going to cut, okay, what is it? It's going to be 1.2, 1.3. Okay, you could cut 500 billion, but it's not like there's a $500 billion program. You cut this piece of crap and,
Right.
like you cut carrier group 6 or whatever, like you said that. But it's all these minor little, like you're going to have to make 6,000 cuts to get to that point. And then every one of those 6,000 cuts is going to be a food fight from some jackass who's got, people in some place and he's got to represent this city or that city. And it's
Yeah.
so well distributed. It's like ironclad against cuts because it's all a bunch of itty bitty stuff. I mean, yeah, you could cut, like personnel is, I don't know, it's this isn't exact, maybe 300-400 billion. And then new procurement is 300-400 billion, but there's 300 programs, and then there's you know operational and maintenance funding. Okay, well, you could have them not fly airplanes and not go anywhere for a month. Like where do you cut it other than just having a huge? I mean, and there's something to be said for that too. Like, or you take a big swath of the military and say, you know what, we're not gonna staff it at this level. We're gonna park airplanes. We're going to park tanks, but like nobody wants to do that.
Well, what I think should have, and this was my critique of Doge, honestly, was not that we needed to cut the money, because you're right, and I agree with you on that. But I think the better thing would be not for you and me to go through the defense authorization bill. Although, I mean, we could have some fun with that, but that's not the right way to go. You say to the Pentagon, here, your plan last year was 1.6 trillion. I need the best plan that keeps America the safest can be for $900 million or $900 billion. Come on back with it, because then they've got to make hard choices. The way it is right now, the agencies don't have to struggle with it. They throw Congress under the bus with that.
Yeah.
Like, what? Well, we told you what we needed 1.6 trillion, and our country's at risk if you don't. Oh,
Well,
okay.
but
So now Congress has got to do
even
it.
within the Defense Department, all the individual services and the different programs, like every program is like, well, we got to go fight for our stuff. It's a
Right.
total territorial mindset of like nobody's looking at it aggregately like, okay, let's have 2 of these, 3 of these, 4 of these, okay, cut these. Like nobody's willing to do that, even in the defense part, because they're all pushing for their own crap and their own service and their own organization. It's so entrenched.
What if you did this? What if you made, and you do this across the government, when you retire, like it's a built-in thing that you got to spend 6 months in service on the commission. And the commission is people who no longer have a stake in the game. And there's enough of them that they can't sell themselves out as lobbyists or something. But your job is to like talk about all of the wasted money that was there in your thing. Like now you're going to get a paycheck for 6 months, but in that 6 months, your job is to it's like when they talk to the mobsters. You get the mob enforcer to rat on what's going on. They're the ones who know how the game's played. You say, hey,
Oh,
you
well,
were
I mean, why couldn't you use AI? Surely you could train an AI model to compare the U.S. military strength and then optimize like what crap can we cut that saves the most money, still preserves the highest lethality compared to any other country. You could probably train ChatGPT to do that in 90 minutes.
well, and props to my brother-in-law who has said for years, you know, if it wasn't the government and it was a big company, you would hire McKinsey to give you a report on what you're
Right.
supposed to
Yeah.
cut. Like there's a method for this in the world.
Yeah.
But no, we don't. No, we wouldn't consider that. We wouldn't consider that. In part, I think that's where the polarization is designed, because
Honestly, that,
if you got 100 Americans in a room, you could get to an answer. But the polarization is like that's the last line of defense for these people.
and honestly, that's why I was so jazzed about Doge. Because honestly, you need somebody like Elon Musk who doesn't give a crap that's going to come in and look at this through the most pragmatic eyes. And I think he did that, and I think he would have done it, but I think he saw the writing on the wall that they didn't really want to cut anything. It was all window dressing BS, is what it was. And you
Right.
were right about it. And I should have recognized that. But I don't think it's Elon that is the problem. I think it's the people, ultimately it's Trump, but it's also the deep state that doesn't want it to happen. That it's like you need big balls in there. You need somebody like that has zero affiliation, that is purely looking at the data that says, do this. And then you need that person to be actually blessed by the president. Like, no, I don't care what any of you other jerks say is going to happen. But it's like, funny that the 19-year-old that they had on the staff's name was Big Balls. We needed Big Balls a little further up the chain to actually make the types of hard choices, because that's what, you know what I mean? It's like, if you pick anybody within the bureaucracy to do that, they're never going to get at the result that somebody independent, purely looking at data, could do. So I loved it, but they neutered them.
Well, again, their power, and I prefer mostly to Congress, but their power comes from that power of like, that is what they have.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're not going to relinquish that. They're not going to turn that over to AI or to McKinsey or any other one of the 1,000 better ways we could do it. They're just not.
Well, I would like you to listen to, I don't want to keep talking about Joe Rogan, but I do enjoy some of the dialogue. You got to watch this episode. It's a little slow, I think, but watch this latest one with Roman Yampolsky. This guy's a computer science, AI safety research and professor at University of Louisville, and he's talking about, like, we have this thought that AI is going to be a net benefit to the world, and he takes it down another path, and it's more around safety and how could we manage that. But you think about, and I don't want to go down that path now because that's like a whole other subject matter, but I do feel like we have this benevolence towards AI, like it's going to be a positive. And I don't think to your point earlier about productivity. No, I think the fear is the productivity gains are all going to go to the big corporations and the billionaires. But I think there's also a darker potential that could happen too.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I literally try not to focus on it because, I mean, it could be really dark. And actually, in a way, like Skynet and the Terminator, that's actually not the worst outcome, I don't think. I think the worst outcome is that it goes about halfway to that, that it becomes about halfway powerful enough to really throw things. And it throws about half the people out of work into really traumatic circumstances. And it makes half the people rich and carefree. Like, that's a recipe for really bad outcomes.
Well, one of the analogies was like, and I always think about this today when I'm and I travel almost every week for work, and it used to be pre GPS. Like, we've talked about this, the rental car, like Hertz had a pad. It was like a notepad, but it was full of maps of the city, and they just tear you off a map. Well, here you go. Here's your map, and go figure out where you're supposed to go. But now it's CarPlay, and I just go wherever the hell it tells me. I don't know where I'm going. And their thing was, one of the dialogues was about, I'm using ChatGPT to write emails every day. Well, could I still write an email 10 years from now, or am I going to be clueless because I'm relying on it? At what point is our I mean, there's a lot of things it can do, but do we rely too much, and does that harm our own thinking?
Big time, I think it does.
So I don't know. I mean, the other thing on there that I would just mention, that because he asked the guy, he's like, well, what could it do to screw things up, and or something like that, and the guy was like, well, things that I can't even think of, because AI can think of things I can't think of. So like, it's like, okay, that's actually a really good thought. Like, I don't know how it could go bad, but it probably has a million ideas of how it could go bad that I haven't even thought of. And so I guess my only point is, like, at the beginning of this podcast, I feel like I feel like there's this windfall that's going to come to somebody on AI, but we probably ought to tamper those expectations, because it may not be as good for anybody as we hope. I hope it is, but who knows?
No, I think I think you're absolutely right. I don't disagree. I don't know what to do about it. I'm a little hands up because we can't figure out equitable solutions to relatively straightforward problems that operate at human scale and human speed.
Yeah.
I mean, healthcare is a really good example that any real fix to healthcare in this country is going to be expensive and it's going to be painful and it's going to be unequally painful to different pockets of our society. And therefore, we are unable and unwilling to tackle it.
Yeah.
Well, all of those things are certainly going to be at work in anything that AI does.
Yeah. And maybe there is a solution to our this dilemma of, again, nobody in politics really wants to fix a budget. We've got all these systemic problems nobody wants to fix. And it's like, is the only way it's going to get fixed when we're no longer in control? I mean, are we the biological obstacle here that is preventing true efficiency and
Well, you've
resiliency?
said this, in response to my smart ass comments about we ought to like quit building F-35s and new bombers that have, like just take the person out of it.
Well, I
My,
1,000,000% agree with that.
but my fear is that that's exactly the conclusion that. So think about some of the things that are the most glaring opportunities for that. Automobiles and driving.
Truck drivers. What do you need a truck driver?
Well, and not just truck drivers, everybody else. And what it ought to be is that you can't get on the interstate if you're not on an autonomous deal.
Yeah.
Right? You can drive on surface streets all you want, but the interstate is for and only for those that sign in. And you turn over control to the computer. And everybody freaks out about that. And one car crashes in California and everybody flips, but we kill 50,000 a year on the road with human beings with hands on the
Yeah.
wheel. We're just not, we can't handle that. So, in that sense, does the AI conclude that the best place to make a move is to take people out of cockpits and then to take people out of automobiles
There's this
and then to
guy that
take people?
uh, one of the kids had a volleyball rec team, and one of the other parents, nice folks, the guy is a truck driver, and I got to talking to him, and he's like, every day, every week, every Monday of every week, he and this other guy that he drives with, they leave Dallas. We're in the DFW area. They leave Monday morning, and they wind up driving to their tag team, and they drive and take a load to Jacksonville, Florida, and they go from Jacksonville, Florida to LA, and LA back to Dallas all inside of a week. And they do that every week of the year. And I'm thinking, I mean, no offense, I don't want to take your livelihood from you, but there's got to be a better way than two guys driving to Jacksonville to LA to Dallas. Like, oh my gosh, that's horrible.
Yeah,
But there's
that
guys
sounds
doing
like a
that
long
all over.
week.
Yeah.
And the first time you drive that route, it's awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Crossing the mountains of New Mexico, and it's like, but by week three, you're like, yeah.
We shouldn't. Well, and again, I'm not disparaging because we probably have listeners that are truck drivers. I mean, I would listen to podcasts. I can drive a long ways with a podcast.
Oh yeah.
And I don't begrudge the job. It's a job. It's like any job, but I just feel like these monotonous, what's monotonous to me may not be monotonous to somebody else, but that seems
Well,
like something that's ripe for automation.
it seems like it, but again, there's a lot of resistance there. And
Yeah.
so that may not be the first. That's the one that kind of looks the most obvious to you and me. But, who's sticking up for the paralegals in this country or
Yeah.
the medical coding specialists, like all of that stuff. In some ways, that's a easier jump to replace with AI today that because even though it's pretty logical that you could put autopilots in trucks and cars,
It's going to scare a lot of people. That's going to take a while before it's adopted.
yeah, but look around your office and there's jobs in your office
Nobody's going to be
that you,
scared if the paralegal's job is outsourced.
right. Well, interesting times. We should wrap,
Yeah, we should.
but a great topic
Yeah.
and lots of jumping off. I commend you. I don't know that we'd agree on everything, but I love the idea of kind of stepping aside from the party line to say what are the options? What are the big things that are in play for us, and where do we go forward? I think it's really, really commendable on your part.
Well, and I appreciate you for not, one could say like, man, you've got me on the ropes now. You could have drugged me down a really deep hole, but you didn't. So I appreciate that. So
Yeah, we're all in this together, which is ultimately, if we had like a tagline for the podcast, to me, that's what it is. We are all in this together, and we got to quit fighting with each other. We got bigger problems.
Oh, wait, we could call it Better Together. I think that was Hillary Clinton. We better not go there, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm with her. I mean, there's lots of things you can feel.
That's right.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.